Allow me to welcome you to the penultimate lecture of the Road Institute's series of lectures during this academic year. It gives me extraordinary great pleasure to welcome Dr. Wu Xin, Assistant Professor of Classical and Near Eastern Archaeology at Bryn Mawr College, with a talk entitled Imperial Foundations of the Silk Road, Persian Roads and Han Walls. Professor Wu Xin's research is wide-ranging and focuses on the entangled cultures of Mesopotamia, the Iranian Plateau, Central Asia, and China. With this expands her research foregrounds trans-regional networks we first discerned fully developed under the Achaemenid Empire in the 6th and, from the 6th to the 4th centuries before the Common Era, and networks that are responsible for the flow and movement of ideas, crafts, and objects reaching from the ancient Near East across Eurasian steppes all the way to Central Asia and its eastern confines. These entanglements, again, Professor Wu Xin reifies in order to gauge the impact thereof upon the formation of discrete cultural practices and the historical individuation of regional polities. She has authored a number of impactful articles published since 2010 on the circulation of Persianizing objets d'art in Central Asia, as well as on Scythian, or on the Scythians, or the Saka, on the eastern confines of the Achaemenid Empire. To name only a few articles penned by her, there are Persian and Central Asia elements at the Pazyryk, southern Siberia, in 2007, Enemies of Empire, a historical reconstruction of political conflicts between Central Asia and the Persian Empire in 2010, and Central Asia in the Achaemenid period in 2021. I must express my great admiration for her work, which I have extensively mined for my own studies on Achaemenid geo and cosmography. At the present, Professor Wu Xin is working on a much anticipated monograph, tentatively entitled Persia and the East, which I just made claim on to right here to publish as part of our UC Press, Iran and the Ancient World. She doesn't know yet, which is fully done, that explores the impact of the Achaemenid imperial system on its eastern provinces and fields an important lacuna in Achaemenid studies, which remains obsessively, albeit understandably, dedicated to the study of the empire's western satrapies and provinces, not least on account of the relative abundance of narrative and archaeological sources in contrast to the paucity in the east. Needless to say, the assessment of the eastern confines of the Iranicate world in antiquity requires the resumption and exploration of old-new archaeological fieldwork, in which Professor Wu Xin is fully engaged, as there are ongoing excavations in various Central Asian countries, and since 2010, her directorship of the Kuzila Tepe archaeological project in Uzbekistan do bear witness. Her lecture today exemplifies her capacious approach and reinvestigation of on the strength of recent archaeological discoveries from Central Asia and Western China of the formation of the Silk Road as an early paradigm of globalization. In particular, she posits that the subsequent infrastructural investments of the Achaemenid Empire and later on the Han Dynasty, each temporally distinct and responding to individualized exigencies, eventually laid the groundwork for an interconnected network encompassing much of the ancient Eurasian world. For audiences who have recently partaken in the lecture of Professor Zita van Rheden, just recently organized by Global Antiquity 2 weeks ago, a fortnight ago, it would be most illuminating to witness a different but complementary approach to the formation of the Silk Road. Please join me in welcoming Professor Wu Xin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the really nice introduction. It would take me 3 days to write an introduction like that. So before I start my talk, I just want to make a claim that all the pretty pictures you're going to see are done by my colleague and collaborator, Sun Zhijun at the Dunhuang Institute, including this one on the screen, which represents the Great Wall of China and one of the associated watchtowers. This paper develops from a presentation I gave at a conference at Leiden University last November on global dynamics in antiquity, which views global dynamics as the, quote, process and combined effects of increasing complex connectivities, end quote, and that increased connectivities can be the result of major movements of people, objects, and ideas. The framework is compelling and at the same time raises methodological questions. Can we readily define and trace the stages of these processes archaeologically? What material remains illuminate this complex dynamics? Furthermore, beyond combined effects, should we also consider the intentions and agencies of those involved, regardless of the outcomes? To fully understand this movement of people, objects, and ideas, we must also investigate their underlying motivations, the forces propelling these flows, the facilitating channels, and the mechanisms behind them. In this lecture, I'll address these questions by focusing on the second half of the first millennium BCE, a pivotal period for the formation of profoundly influential global networks. This period features two key developments: the rise of vast empires, Achaemenid, Persian, Roman, and Western Han, and the growth of trans-Eurasian interconnectivity, optimized by the so-called quintessential supra-regional global network. While extensive study, the scholarship has primarily focused on the consequences of its connectivity, its formation and operation logistics have been significantly understudied. This lecture re-examines the origins and mechanisms of this trans-Eurasian network during the latter half of the first millennium BCE. It posits that the imperial ambitions in frontier development of the Achaemenid Persian Empire and the Han Chinese dynasty were fundamental in establishing this communication network. While the Persian Royal Road facilitated movement from Central Asia to the Mediterranean, the Han Dynasty's extensive defense system, represented by its long border walls, as you see on the screen, provided security and strategic control from Chang'an to Samarkand. This analysis draws on archaeological discoveries of Central Asia and Western China, argues that the combined infrastructural investments of these geographically and temporarily distinct empires laid the groundwork for the roads that ultimately interconnected the ancient Eurasian world, or the Silk Road. I will illustrate this in three sections. First, understanding a road system. Second, the Achaemenid king's endeavor in building up its Central Asia frontier. And third, the Han Chinese emperor's effort in constructing the logistic systems in the formidable desert between Dunhuang and Lowland, It is through the combined effort of the Persian kings and Chinese emperors over nearly 500 years that the ancient world became closely connected. Understanding the roads. Extensive Silk Road scholars reveal diverse aspects of this transcontinental network. Historians use textual analysis to uncover administration, daily life, and even personal emotions, exemplified by a 4th century Sogdian letter discovered in one of the watchtowers in the Great Wall near Dunhuang, detailing a woman's desperation after being abandoned by her husband. "I would rather be a dog or a pig's wife than yours," she screamed. Art historian analysis across cross-cultural analyze cross-cultural objects, such as those discovered the Sogdian funeral art with Zoroastrian iconography discovered in China. Archaeologists provide contextual understanding through excavations, like the newly excavated Tangchaodun site, revealing a Roman-style bath and Christian church. Maps are crucial for illustrating Silk Road connections. We all see a lot of maps, but they're all so terribly wrong. So the reality of navigating such routes was far more complex than simple lines connected by the series of dots. It requires travelers to consider logistics like food, lodging, and directions without modern technology. At this very moment, I do not know one of the students who's trying to navigate her way back from Kabul to Urumqi because the flight was canceled due to the war. And this is something happened very often in the past, if you study Central Asia. How did people navigate the formidable terrain, the towering mountains, and the vast salt deserts that characterize much of the road? How did they overcome the logistic challenges of traversing such a inhospitable landscape? Were the Silk Road a system of paved road with institutional backup, or merely a series of pre-existing natural passes linking settlements? These questions converge on a central inquiry: the nature and function of the road system itself. Roads formed the literal and metaphorical foundation of connectivities. Yet they often remain elusive in our study of the interaction due to the difficulties of archaeological tracing. Intimately connected to the question of the road is the nature of the global dynamics themselves. And in this talk, you have to train your eye to recognize which are the towers or infrastructure in this part of the world. Before examining the specifics of this road system, it's crucial to understand their complexity. Far more than intersecting lines, they formed a vast network encompassing diverse interconnected infrastructures. This could include, for example, administrative centers, official residence, road, way stations, granaries, and pavilions to facilitate and manage travel, workshops of pottery, leather, textile, basket industries, markets, and trading posts for daily life and travel needs, settlement, canals, agriculture field, animal pens, stables, gardens, orchards, and other local subsistence infrastructure for production and resource management. Additionally, this network requires a sophisticated bureaucracy of suppliers, recipients, administrators, or translators. Such complex logistics demand substantial investment, as construction often necessitate supporting infrastructures like way stations, fortifications, and even new cities. Given these enormous costs, the primary concern of the Persian and Chinese empires were to facilitate communication, tax payment, and military movement across vast distance rather than trade, which undoubtedly benefited but was not the main driving force. This is evident in the tens of thousands of administrative texts on clay tablets and wooden or bamboo slips from Persepolis and various sites in Dunhuang, a point we'll revisit. Now, let's examine the construction of such logistics system using Central Asia as an example. I'll start with the Achaemenid Empire. Regardless of the Achaemenid Empire's road system, I assume we all know that the Achaemenid Empire is dated to the 6th to 4th century BCE, right? Herodotus described a Persian royal road from Sardis to Susa, while Ctesias suggests it extended to Bactria in India. 5th century BCE texts from Persepolis, which were mostly Elamite tablets, Elephantini, which are Aramaic texts, and Bactria, also Aramaic texts, reveal frequent travel along the royal road by large groups from across the empire: India, Eastern Iran, Central Asia, Anatolia, and Egypt, serving as laborers, garrison dwellers, craftsmen, tax transporters, envoys, and military personnel. Based on these texts, we're able to reconstruct the network of the Achaemenid Empire. Numerous accounts from Persepolis fortification archive, as Henkelmann details in his study of the land spares, demonstrated that the Greek king's commitment to road construction and maintenance, dispatching road inspectors, workers, and armies to map the terrain and build roads. Land sparers, sometimes called road counters, measured road width with ropes to ensure carriage's wheelbase matched. They typically led teams of 6 senior inspectors and 12 junior aides, often dispatched by the king or high officials in Persepolis. Henkelmann suggests hundreds of road inspectors were active in the Persian countryside at any given time. So he suggests those road inspectors, they check the road conditions, erecting mileage signs, counting people and troops, and also investigating irregularities. Persepolis texts indicate that the Achaemenid Imperial road system extended all the way to the northeast into Central Asia and the Indo-Iranian borderland. Text records shows that satraps like this one, whose name is Karkish, the satrap of Chang'an, leading up to 30,000 troops to quell rebellions in Media, Sargatia, and even Babylon. And the satraps, when he travels, he's engaged with all kinds of tasks, even mining. So the road make it all possible. Taxpayer groups, sometimes up to 600 people with pack animals, transported goods from Parthia in modern-day Turkmenistan and northeastern Iran, and Anatolia, which is in modern-day Afghanistan, southern Afghanistan, to the Achaemenid royal capitals. Envoys with large entourages, sometimes including translators and elite guide, journeyed west to visit the Great King in Susa or Persepolis. One account documents over 100 women traveling from Ionia to Afghanistan or Anatolia and then to Persepolis for some unknown purpose. The travelers usually lodge in way stations managed by the Achaemenid officers and provide provisions from imperial storehouses. This road, vital to the empire's operation, were later used by Alexander the Great as his via militaris to pursue Darius III into Central Asia. Henkelmann argues that the system's way station and granary aided Alexander's difficult return from India through Gedrosian Desert. And this is a picture showing the seals of the elite guides. Archaeological evidence from Central Asia corroborates the extension of the Achaemenid road network to the region. This is illustrated by the sudden appearance of new settlements with defensive structures, often constructed in the previous unsettled area to presumably control mountain passes or river crosses. Chashmashafa in northern Afghanistan, as near the red dot, is among the examples. The site, built as a fortified urban center, guarding the entrance from the south into Bactria, boasts two mountaintop fortresses and possibly religious structure like a fire altar or even temple and possibly a shrine. This is the defensive system on the top of the mountains, and this is a huge fire altar. Kiziltepe in southern Uzbekistan, strategically located near the entrance of a main trans-Achaemenid road into the Hisar Mountains extending towards southern Tajikistan. It features main site surrounded by more than a dozen of small settlements. In northern Afghanistan, in Suhandaria Valley, 7 of such clusters of sites are spaced at regular intervals, roughly a day's walk apart. And the main sites of those clusters are lined up to apparently form a road, to define a road. In northern Afghanistan, a series of sites define a road stretching from Chashmashafa to the south of Bactria towards the north, all the way until the bank of the Amudarya River. Along the road within the sand dune area in the north, archaeological survey has revealed a line of small settlements. A 6 to 7 meter wide aqueducts run parallel to the settlements, likely built to provide water for the inhabitants and their agricultural land. Settlement distributions in such linear fashion have also been detected in the Merv oasis in southern Turkmenistan, to mostly probably define a road. Many sites are fortified. They serve as military strongholds, protecting workshops, storehouses, and perhaps animals. The fortification at Chashmashafa, with their commanding positions on the mountaintops exemplify this protective function. In the Merv Oasis, the Italian team unearthed a fortified site with evidence of a bead-making workshop. In Suhandaria, southern Uzbekistan, at the site of Talashkenttepe 1, within a circular fortification with a 5-meter wide wall, archaeologists discovered thick layers of animal manure within a corridor, suggesting it provided refuge for both people and livestock during time of dangers. Aramaic inscription on the granite vessels from the Persepolis treasury and the Elamite tablets from the Persepolis fortification archive indicate that some forts were also functioned as administrative centers at various levels. Based on archaeological data, we can reconstruct roughly the road across ancient Bactria. This represents only a very small section of the Achaemenid communication network, which is in that small square, right? Small yellow square. To build such a network, the Greek king must have invested a vast amount of resources. And yet, beyond the initial construction of the road and the settlements, the Achaemenid central government would have to continue to invest on the maintenance and operation of the network. For example, at Kiziltepe, archaeobotanic remains indicate that the intensive agriculture likely requiring a substantial irrigation system to support at least 14 settlements and their surrounding fields, which are located on a small pediment cone ecologically unsuitable for agriculture. With the Achaemenid Empire's collapse, most settlements were abandoned in Suhandaria. Sites decreased from 56 to 5 in the Hellenistic period. In the Merv Oasis, from 410 to 67. At Kiziltepe, all sites were abandoned soon after the Achaemenid Empire declined. This widespread abandonment highlights the road network's dependence on the Achaemenid state's centralized power. Without continued investment and control, sustaining infrastructure in ecologically fragile zones like northern Bactria proved difficult. Despite the Achaemenid Empire's demise, its communication network and knowledge, I emphasize, of Central Asia provided a long-lasting foundation for subsequent empires. The Seleucids, inheriting Achaemenid territory, passing knowledge of the communication network to the Parthians, and the Achaemenid legacy, a valuable asset for Parthian kings, and enabled the Parthian Empire to flourish as an intermediary on the Silk Road for trade between the Han Dynasty and the Roman Empire. For this, I'd like to direct you to Professor Laura Fabing as your source of resource. Turning now to the east of Central Asia, let's examine how the Chinese Han Dynasty, which is dated to 206 to BCE to 220 CE, roughly contemporary to the Parthian Empire of 247 to 247 BC to 224 AD. So extended its influence into Central Asia and connected with the extending network. I will focus on the area between Dunhuang and Lowland, part of my current field project. The sites lie between the Kumtag in the east and Taklamakan Desert to the west. This area is particularly significant as it constituted the westernmost frontier of the Han Empire. To the east of Dunhuang is the Han Dynasty, the territory of the Han Empire. To the west of lowland is Central Asia. Regardless of this, there's very little work has been done between this area. The main reason is its inaccessibility, because this is probably the hardest part of the Silk Road, the hardest part of the road for the Silk Road, given its very harsh environment. Now I go to my third section, from Dunhuang to lowland. And when you look at the map, I have the intention to erase this part of the road which did not exist when the road between Dunhuang and lowland were first established. So you just erase it with your mind eye. Interaction between China and Central Asia predates the Han Dynasty's 2nd century BCE. The Han Dynasty's establishment of stable institution connections. Examples include 9th to 7th century BCE carnelian beads, 5th to 3rd century BCE glad eye beads, Achaemenid style silverware, and type-style earrings found in China, as you can see on this screen. Conversely, pre-Han export from China include silk, lacquerwork, and bronze mirrors, such as those found from Pazarik Kurgan V, which is dated to around 240 and to 250 and 240 BCE. Here is that red dot is where the Pazarik is. While the sporadic finds illustrate early communications, the exchange likely facilitated by the Central Asian nomads, it really liked the intensity of the period following the late 2nd century BCE. You'll stare at this very big and fragmented map for a while. Chinese dynastic chronics like Shiji and Hanshu extensively documented interactions between China and the West, largely concerning military campaigns against the Xiongnu and the political alliance with the city-states in Eastern Central Asia, mostly in modern-day Xinjiang. Over 70,000 administrative texts on wooden and a few bamboo slips corroborate these events. Mirroring the Persepolis archive with letter orders, ledgers, and records of food distribution to travelers between China and the West. Excavations from way stations, administrative centers, and watchtowers along the Great Wall defined communication routes in Western China. These texts list cities, towns, and way stations, revealing a highly organized 2,000-kilometer-long network from Chang'an to Dunhuang frontier, featuring over 45 way stations spaced roughly 38 kilometers apart. In 121 BC, following a decisive victory against the Xiongnu, Emperor Wu established Dunhuang as a key western gateway, one of the 4 prefectures. This 300-kilometer east-west prefecture included 9 major way stations, 5 in oasis towns, and 4 in the open desert, each equipped with 37 personnel, 40 horses, and about 10 carriages for postal relay service. So it's very institutional and it's very standard. And they are all very well documented in texts excavated from Xuanquan as you see, and other way stations in the area. Excavations at Xuanquan or the Hanning Spring, a way station about 60 kilometers east of Dunhuang, revealed a complex with courtyard, rooms, and areas, protected by a tall wall and a northwestern tower. Among the 29 rooms were offices, guest rooms, and stables. Over 30,000 Han Dynasty wooden and bamboo slips were unearthed here. These texts, consistent with the others, indicated a standardized system for receiving personnel, providing supplies, handling disputes, and delivering documents, official orders, and private mail. The text revealed a logistic system parallel to this administrative system, facilitating communication between the Han Empire and Central Asia through roads, granaries, watchtowers, water supplies, and notably walls. And then many of them are preserved on the ground for you to see. So this is Yumenguan, or a square building which is considered to be the entrance into China. And this is a way station with a tower and associated rooms. A granary in the further part, in front of that is a marshland, and also this very nice tower with a small courtyard. And then my favorite slide of this, which combines the wall extending to the far, far west and a tower. The excavated texts mentioned 23 out of 36 city-states documented in Chinese chronicles, mostly along the Taklamakan Desert's edge, some in Central Asia and beyond. Oh, yeah, this is the wall, which is very different from the Great Wall in Beijing, but this is the earliest, Great Wall of China. And then the documented sites are shown here, and they include Usun, which is in modern-day Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, Kanju in modern-day Uzbekistan, Dawan, which is in Fergana Valley, Jibin, which is in Kashmir and northwestern India, Uishanli, which is in modern-day Afghanistan, and of course Dayuezhi, which has been very mysterious, but most people believe that they founded the Kushan Empire. Envoys from both the Han court and Central Asia were typically escorted, fed, and accommodated by local prefecture personnel. This demanded a sophisticated infrastructure system, as the area to the west of Dunhuang is largely desert and incredibly difficult to travel. And I'm speaking of my own experience. When managing small travel groups was likely straightforward for way stations, large groups posed significant logistic challenges. For example, in 9 BCE, Xuanquan Way Station had to provide 540 kilograms of millet for about 336 envoys from Wusun and 60 accompanying horses. Another text recorded a Khotan envoy. The group has 1,400 people. Some Western envoys behaved inappropriately. One text recounts a 400-person delegation leader attempting to take fine wine from the storehouse himself. Besides envoys, way stations also accommodated Han troops and garrison workers en route. In 53 BC, way stations were ordered to prepare for 15,000 soldiers led by General Xin Wuxian, who was going to campaign against Wu Sun. Way stations also provided animals and fodders, with text documenting requests for support from nearby villages and stations to transport fodders to Xuanquan for support. And the high alfalfa demands sometimes inflated prices. While texts reveal much about the logistic management between Dunhuang and Lowland, the archaeological remains between these crucial sites, aside from the wall and associated watchtowers, remain largely unknown, given its difficult in access. How are this infrastructure managed? How did people navigate this previously unsettled and extremely challenging terrain? How did this infrastructure, including road, way stations, and defensive system, manifest in landscape? Why did the wall run that way? How did people negotiate such a harsh environment? Our archaeological project, a collaboration between Fudan University and Gansu Institute of Archaeology of China, aims to answer these questions by employing a cross-disciplinary approach to create a comprehensive picture for the archaeological landscape and understanding the management and operation of this frontier zone. Our work so far focused on the area between Yumenguan, or called the Jade Gate, which is the entrance or into China, and the Wanyao Basin, which you can see, which is about 90 kilometers away from Yumenguan. No, from Dunhuang. Preliminary investigations combined textural analysis, remote sensing, surface survey, and archaeological sciences have yielded exciting and encouraging results, which I will briefly summarize here. First, the gateway into the Han Empire. The infrastructure formed a highly organic system, enclosed by a defensive network of walls and associated watchtowers. Each triangle is a watchtower, creating a protective outer layer akin to skin and lymph nodes. Roads and other structures were situated to the south and east of the wall. The entire system was controlled by two main centers, Yumenguan and Yangguan, which are the two gateways, functioning as the border control points. While a square building 80 kilometers to the west of Dunhuang has been assumed to be Yumenguan, many scholars dispute this due to the structure's perceived small size relative to Yumenguan's paramount status. However, our survey reveals a great density of structures in the area surrounding the square building than previously recognized. Visibility analysis indicates this location commands traffic from all directions, strongly suggesting it is indeed Yumenguan, the gateway into the Han territory. Second, walls and towers. These prominent archaeological features strategically utilize natural topography. To the east of Yumenguan, the wall followed the southern shore of a lake, using the lake as an additional defensive barrier. To the west of Yumenguan, the wall extended to the Yushuquan Basin before sharply turned south and terminally. You can see the turn of the wall, right? The faint triangular shape. It goes to the west and then to the south. Intriguingly, GIS analysis revealed that while the defense system ran parallel to the Shula River, kind of parallel, not entirely, it doesn't enclose the river as one might expect. This is curious, as the river was the largest surface water source in this arid region. However, as the map shows, the wall followed a chain of wetlands fed by spring and underground water. The likely explanation is that people relied on the more stable year-round underground sources. While in this is a spring or some springs in the area. One is in the summer to the right, left, and then in the winter you can still see the water coming out from the spring. Once you rely on the underground water, is a lot more stable than the Shula River, which could be seasonal in antiquity. By doing so, the Han Dynasty maintained complete control over access to both water and desert grassland. This small grassland were vital for sustaining traveling in the harsh desert environment, providing fodder for animals and hindering nomadic group who posed a threat to the traveler. Analysis of soil and vegetation coverage by Luo Renren, a student of mine, further demonstrate a significant overlap between the walls, watchtowers, and plants thriving in sealing and salinized soil. This again suggests a deliberate placement of wall and towers specifically to protect this essential grassland and water sources. Second, the watchtower. With the exception of a few watchtowers, such as the one marked as D7, I don't know if you can see that, which is strategically positioned at the Shula rivers on the other side of the river at the narrowest point of the river. So it's apparently to guard the crossing of the river. Most other towers are located on the edge or at the entrance point of the wetlands, underscoring the paramount importance of guarding these areas. Stones found beside the towers serve as defensive purpose. Beyond the defense, these towers, often built on tablelands or atop yardens, apparently functioned as beacon towers for orientation, which is crucial to the region's unique geoformation, where get lost is very easy. I also hypothesize the presence of markets near these towers. Textile, including silk, have been discovered within or near the towers, with some brocade pieces likely being commercial goods rather than attire for soldiers due to their expensiveness. At the system's westernmost extent are 5 towers with no associated wall traces. Situated in the most fertile area west of Dunhuang, this place is ideal for animal husbandry. At least 2 of these towers are located within what appear to be the center of the settlement, suggesting surveillance of residents was primary function. For example, here is a tower, and this is supposed to be a site we're working on now. Visibility analysis indicates communication between these towers and those outside the Wanyao Basin. Third, settlements. We have identified settlements hidden within marshland and the Gobi Desert. Displayed here is the LiDAR image of a settlement featuring a large structure measuring 60 by 80 square meters and another at 40 by 40 meters. And that red zone here also contains what looked like a lot of structures. Surrounding the structures are features appearing to be road and residential areas. To the south lies what seems to be another large settlement. While definite dating of the Han period for this settlement remains uncertain, their spatial correlation with the walls and the towers suggests they were part of the same system. Han period administrative texts from at least 3 nearby towers, this being one of them, boast this assumption. The wooden slips from those towers indicates a granary near Tower D5 that would have covered 10,000 square meters, further highlighting the area's significance. In the Wanyao Basin to the very west, remote sensing using LiDAR and surface survey points to a major settlement centered around a watchtower. A 30-centimeter thick layer of sheep and goat manure used to level the tower's foundation suggests the presence of animal pens nearby. Abundant spring water, raised banks, and street lines of specific vegetation along the marshland's edge indicate spring water management. So those lines. And then there is a square pond over there. Where quarrying is needed for confirmation, it's plausible as administrative texts mention the Han Emperor's edict for irrigation canal construction in the region. The existence of a settlement in the Wanyao Basin is unsurprising, as it serves as the final stop in the Han defensive and logistic system. Travelers would have rested here before replenishing supplies for the arduous journey across the Kumtag Desert to the Achaemenid Basin. This is on the screen. This is the most difficult part of the travel because it doesn't have water supply. So once you pass by this, you can reach lowline through this the long vault. And also the preliminary work in this area has revealed the existence of settlements. And in a recent publication, this settlement as part of the survey of the local archaeologists, this one is dated to the later period. It's not, it looks late, but it's dated to the later period. So apart from the marshland and the wetland, there are also features that we discovered in the Gobi Desert, as you can see here. I can't see, but I remember this is about 400 meters across. So it looks like a large empty enclosure. I don't know if it was caravanserai or something. So we haven't get the chance to do the surface survey on those yet. Well, our project is still in its beginning stage. It's already clear that the Han Empire indeed invested significant resources to develop this previous unoccupied area to facilitate communication between China and the West, making the movement of people, objects, and ideas not only possible, but also systematic, intensified, and stable. In conclusion, the trans-Eurasian road network that propelled globalization in the latter half of the first millennium BCE took shape through the combined efforts of the Achaemenid and Han empires. Although the initial intention was to explore imperial frontier for political and military purposes, the infrastructure established by the Achaemenid and the Han Chinese nonetheless laid the groundwork for the later Silk Road, and its influence continued to shape political and economic decisions today. The Achaemenid linked the Mediterranean and Central Asia, while the Han connected China to Central Asia, forming two critical phases in the development of trans-Eurasian connectivity. Indeed, to make this claim, there's going to be a lot more work to do and a lot of thinking to do. Thank you.